Recording. Awesome. So normally this is where I would read a big intro. So I've got an intro just for you though.
I like it.
All right. Here we go. Welcome to Out of Home Insider, the loudest voice in out of home. And we've got a really special guest. And you guys know, typically this is where I read a long, glorious introduction, but the only appropriate introduction here is, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated, undisputed heavyweight champion, the all-time leader of the Out of Home Insider Show podcast downloads and views and all that. He's the number one guest of all time. Craig Benner, welcome back.
Well, you know, the sequel is always less interesting than the original.
Listen, man, Cobra Kai has proved that concept wrong. So I feel like we got Danny LaRusso here, and we're gonna do something pretty fun today. What have you been up to?
You know, just doing the deal. You know, it's been fun. Venues are opening up. The complexion of the business has changed again. You know, we're continuing to work with our brand partners and just living life in this new normal.
Yeah, it's certainly been the world has changed a little bit since we did this last time. And speaking of change, something that we maybe talked about a little bit, Accretive just launched a pretty cool concept with connected TV.
Yep. So teased it out a little bit, had kind of a travel bent when we talked about it, but we launched Accretive Connect, which is the industry's first digital out of home to connected TV format sequencing product. So it's effectively consumers. It's consumers will see one of our targeted digital out of home ads, and then we'll be able to extend the value of that investment into the living room and reinforce the brand message into out, you know, over the top devices and connected TV. So really the story there is we know what out of home is good with. We know it's brand building. We know there's big, beautiful screens. And if we can couple that exposure with something that's a little more emotive, video, sight, sound, and motion, kind of more of a lean back experience inside the home, kind of those two exposures, if we can control the exposure cadence, we know that will have massive recall benefits, massive response benefits. And in all of our kind of proving out the concepts, it's been highly validated. So we're super excited about the product, and clients are too. As we've rolled it out, it's been highly resonant to brands and agencies and clients.
Right, because it reeks of two things that I love, which is efficiency and also effectiveness. Was this an idea that came out of a conversation or out of a need? Was somebody asking for this, or just something you thought made sense and wanted to test with the market?
So it's interesting because we've always, you know, and I think last time I was on, I even talked about, hey, you know, heterogeneous exposures to different mediums and different formats is key to maximizing recall and ultimately inducing some sort of behavior that you care about, right? Inducing outcomes that you care about. And it actually brought me back to probably 10, 12 years ago. And along this theme of every format has its place in media mix optimization. And I remember we were working with, back when I was in digital, we were working with one of the large domestic autos. And they cared about, this was a lower funnel in-market campaign, and they were running display and they were running search. And they were doing like build and price and leads. And it was all about driving that efficiency. And we were doing the display, and they were running their search. And on a cost per KPI standpoint, search was outperforming display. So they said, okay, cool. It's zero sum. We're just going to take all of the display budget and we're going to dump it into search. And we said, probably not the best idea, but you be you. And they did that, and their search volumes went down 40%, you know, spoiler alert, you know, not the best strategy.
And Craig, for anybody that may not be familiar with that, why did that happen?
So because display was driving the intent, which search ultimately transacted.
Right, because no
So
better way to capture demand than search, but
yeah,
you still
exactly.
got to create demand.
Exactly. So they ultimately said, okay, well, we can't even spend this money because we couldn't generate any demand. So the moral of the story was yeah, display, much like out of home, you need to understand the place of each format. And you need to understand that you need to generate intent, you need to
Right.
cultivate intent or influence, and then ultimately you can transact that. And it's funny when you can control the exposure cadence, like a Creative Connect, then you can say this is an audience, this is a cohort that saw these out of home ads, which we know are high impact, fraud free, 14 by 48, big, beautiful ads, and then ultimately reinforce that message in more of a lean back environment inside the home with 15, 30-second spots, even longer form spots on connected TV, where more and more people are spending more and more of their time. All of a sudden you can build intelligent frequency across intelligent formats and ultimately tell that story, which you just flat out couldn't. And keep in mind, this is not an omni-channel solution. This is an out-of-home solution, which focuses on the how special our format is and how differentiated our format is, because it starts with the unique and differentiated way we can communicate as a format with our constituents, with our consumers in the physical world.
And elaborate on why that delineation is so important.
Because it's we are unique, and there's a huge kind of, too many times out of home is an afterthought, and there's kind of dueling factions right now in the out of home space, where a lot of times people think just by virtue of making our inventory available that people are just going to start buying it. And I specifically delineate omni-channel versus out of home specific, because a lot of the omni-channel DSPs are starting to offer digital out of home as a bolt-on solution. And the big debate is kind of access versus education. And the right answer is, is it access or education? The right answer is yes, right? It's you need to educate, make sure people understand the effectiveness of the format, and then ensure that it's accessible everywhere. But just by virtue of making the inventory available on omni-channel DSPs does not mean that it's going to be purchased. We still have a ton of work to educate the market, digital buyers, strategy teams, out-of-home specialists, as to why digital out-of-home, programmatic digital out-of-home, broader digital out-of-home, strategically purchased from an audience standpoint, can be effective in driving outcomes before we democratize and commoditize the inventory. Like, ultimately, it can be transacted right now before we can just expect droves and droves and droves of people to be purchasing it the way that it is purchased, like other similarly situated programmatic formats.
Is this where the fragmentation of out of home really becomes the Achilles heel? Is the education, or how does a creative educate its clients on why this is a best practice and how it makes sense?
It's the fragmentation doesn't help. It doesn't help, but it's not the Achilles heel. I think we just need more reps. We just that's really the reality of it. We need to standardize our messaging to the market. Like I think it should be intuitive that that measurement should be the number one priority for everyone. And again, I want to make a distinction between counting and effectiveness. Like, counting and impressions, that I think we're that's kind of outside of my purview. That's the Geopaths and the Cantars of the world. But I'm talking about effectiveness. That should be number one goal for everyone, is let's make everything more accountable and educate how we can ultimately drive results. On the DPAA Video Summit, every time a brand was speaking, they said, we'd love to spend more, but no one can figure out attribution. No one can figure out measurement. No one can just, and it's like, yeah, people have figured that out. It just hasn't been socialized to you. Like, why are you not demanding more? Why are you not doing measurement? So that's been a dearth of education that just hasn't existed, which I wish we had more reps, and I wish ultimately we were able to get in those ears and get more studies out and get more case studies ultimately in the hands of some of these clients, so they can see, again, when executed properly and measured properly, it's astounding how this format works. It's astounding how effective this format can be.
Yeah, and I think, right, we can all have the conversation, whether you're listening, if you're a local level business development rep and you're listening to the show and getting a ton of value, ton of content, dive in more, get more information. And then from the top down, if we can all start having that conversation and get past, sure, I'm going to say it. The piece making the rounds this week, that, what is it, 70% of people notice out of home more. That's cool. Also, no one cares. It's like we got to stop hanging our hat on this thing that people notice it. Like, yes, we all agree we notice it, and creating a tangible measurement. Does the Accretive Connect concept, how are you measuring the results of combining the two mediums?
Yeah, so we're we're going to do it very scientifically. With we're going to create different segments so we can understand the influence that each format on their own and each format together has. So we're going to build methodologically. It's all going to be test control, like we typically do, and it's going to be unexposed entirely, exposed just to CTV, exposed just to out of home, and exposed to the format sequenced ads, and that way, excuse me, they can see all of the different combinations and sequencing of ads, and ultimately make a determination of how much incrementality and lift they get from the solution offering from each of the formats. And it's all going to be based on whatever outcome they care about, whether that's online sales, whether that's online visitation, whether that's offline sales, whether that's foot traffic, whether that's tune in, whether that's, we're going to start, move backwards. We're going to start with the outcome that they care about, and then we're going to go backwards into the execution. And another thing that we're doing is we're making sure that because we understand how the environment in out of home that we're working with, and we're actually we're collaborating with, Ian was just on. We're collaborating with the major roadside guys, like the Outfronts and the Lamars of the world, because we know roadside is going to be a heavy duty piece of this to get massive reach with those big, beautiful bulletins and spectaculars that we're going to make sure that we're highly curated with the bundle IDs and the CTV app lists, so that we avoid any fraudulent environments, because we're already seeing that 1 out of every 5 CTV ads are fraudulent.
No kidding.
Which anytime Double Verify just came out with that. So anytime money floods a market, which CTV is now an $11 billion market out of nowhere. It's now, like, they came out with their first study, and it's like nearly 20% that they can account for. So we're going to be highly curated to ensure that we're on the Hulus and the Foxes and the Tubies and the Plutos and the named bundle IDs and apps that we can ensure that this is all viewable, and this is all high visibility, high quality, exposure to exposure, make sure that it's the first coupling of broadcast to broadcast is going to be high impact, high recall, high response, high success for our client partners.
How do we avoid a zero-sum game? Right? Are we adding CTV money to budgets? Are we shifting budgets? How do you see this all playing out over time and at scale?
That's part of the broader strategy is we're up leveling where we're talking to these consumers, or where we're talking to these brands and agencies is historically the flow of money has been brand to agency to strategy to media to trading desk to out of home, and it's like when we're saying, and that kind of speaks to the omni-channel piece too. It's like, wait, so if we're all relying on the trade desk to win, that's 5 layers removed from the brand sometimes. Like let's make sure we can put together really cogent, smart strategies at the brand and the strategy level.
Right.
and with our specialist partners and with our creative partners, and then all of a sudden the silos don't matter as much because they can tap from multiple sources, and it's just about the customer, consumer centricity, and it's about making sure that you're telling the right story that these creatives have ultimately spent their entire production budgets on, making sure that it stays on brand and ultimately can extol the the virtues of the brand and tell the story that you want them to do across screens.
Right. So if we can cut some layers out of the middle and just create better platforms, better strategies, better executions of the money, then everyone's going to make more money.
Yeah, it's less about cutting them out, and it's more about just collaboration with all of them, and ensuring that everyone is working together to win.
Right.
And it's less of a competitive issue and more of a, we're all going to win because this is all going to, again, it's not just a spray and pray. It's more of a, we're going to collaborate and coordinate exposures of these high value formats together to ensure that both from a consumer and a brand perspective, the best story is told for the brand.
Absolutely. DPAA just wrapped up last week. Any key takeaways?
It was so well done. The Barry and the team did a fantastic job. The content was great. The key takeaways is there's a hunger for digitalization. There's a hunger for that education that we talked about. There's one of the key takeaways is that 2021 is going to be a great year for all of us. And there's a lot of innovation out there. There's a lot of smart people thinking about things. There's a lot of, it's funny. There's a select, like the brands that participated all had really positive experiences. We just need to zoom out and make sure that more of them are participating as much as the ones that are diving in. And again, that's just a function of education. That's a function of more reps. That's a function of all of us working together to do this thing. So I was highly encouraged and really fired up coming out of that summit.
And that's awesome. And obviously that goes a long way to the education part. So kudos to Barry and the team for pulling that off. All the feedback, everybody has been talking about it. Very, very high accolades. So great job. Thank you for sharing that. Craig, where can people find out more about Accretive connect with you? Where are you most active?
LinkedIn is still the most active. They can go to accretiveads.com. We're working on a kind of a stealth, another site that's going to be chock full of just brand success.
Awesome.
Helpingbrandswin.com. Right now it just redirects to the Accretive Ads site, but we're going to be working on something that just talks about the accountability. It literally just talks about case studies where brands and agencies have used our platform to drive results. And it's part of that education process to ultimately say, the thesis is simple, right? 70% of our waking hours, we are outside. So theoretically, we are consuming a ton of out-of-home inventory throughout the day.
Right.
We're spending 4%. The chasm is massive because we don't have the right measurement. If we can show that you can win with this, it's not going to go to 70%, but it sure is going to go bigger than 4.
Let's do it.
So it's that's one of the things that we're working on. And then we have yet another big announcement, which is going to be in Q4, which is going to be product related, which will make it easier and more. It will make our product offering more accessible to the masses. Awesome. In a slightly different way, which will be good for brands across a larger swath of industries, markets, and geographies.
Okay, we'll have to kick off the new year with talking about that. Craig, as always, man, a pleasure. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Tim, and congrats on 1 year, by the way.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks so much. Looking forward to doing a whole nother year of it. Hey, if you found this to be helpful, the number one way you can help the show, click the subscribe button down below, share this, leave a like, leave a comment, and as always, we'll see you guys next time.